Bismillah. Okay, folks. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Shaykh Abdul Ghaffar, for making everyone depressed. Well done. Inshallah, just a few minutes to give myself and all the folks here a reminder. The thought that came to mind is just how remarkably adept, how good we are at self-deception. Humans have that remarkable kind of ability, actually, to deceive ourselves and to create certain mindsets, or to create almost like a zone that we enter. And this isn't as negative as it may sound. Sometimes you need to have the skill of fooling yourself or forcing yourself into things that you're not comfortable with, or into a mindset that you don't want to necessarily continue. And an example of that is, actually there are many examples. We know, for example, when you're praying and you start to yawn, you have to suppress it to your absolute max, physically, whether it's by a hand, whether it's by covering, whether it's trying to close your mouth, etc. Because it's the worst of adab to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that you're in the middle of a conversation with Him and you are obviously bored or tired or X or Y. And the Prophet ﷺ made it very, very clear that a person shouldn't be praying when they're tired. A person shouldn't even be praying when they're hungry, when they need to go to the toilet, let alone when they're tired. It's the height of disrespect. So you force yourself to do something which you know that's not the case, that I'm not tired, I'm okay. And in actual fact, the sunnah is to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, when you yawn, regardless of whether it comes out or not, whether it expresses or not, because shaitan's going to play you on that. He's going to take advantage of that, remind you that you don't like this, you don't want to be here, this ain't your gig, this isn't your game, you're doing it because your dad's here, you're doing it because the community is going to know that you didn't come, etc. And so the point I want to make is that ibadah, especially in this month in which you're being reminded every single day, it's Ramadan, it's the month of the Quran, and all these flowery reminders of how nice it should be, but something's going wrong because everybody's dead tired, everybody's so relieved when the 8th rak'ah is prayed, everyone's so relieved when the last sajda is done. Self-deception, isn't it, right? You're thinking and playing and saying the right things, but inside it's not working. And I want to suggest to you that the reason for that is because we're not seeing ibadah for what it is. You see, when you start to bring your aql and your emotions into this kind of game, into the game of ibadah, when you try to work it out yourself, instead of recognizing what it is for itself, that's where the problem starts. So where you should start is to recognize that ibadah is not about making you feel good. Ibadah is not about you feeling better or enjoying yourself. Ibadah comes from exactly the word that you all know. It's ubudiyya, it's slavery. You are nothing but an abd to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are a slave. You can paint that how you want, but there's nothing fun or nice about being a slave. And it's not meant to be nice. You either take it, taw'an aw karha. You either obey or you're going to be forced to obey. You either take it or you get yourself to like it or enjoy it or not, no problem. Good luck to you in the afterworld. And so when you start off on that as your default, that I'm not meant to enjoy this, but I can develop a sense of enjoyment. I'm not meant to be trying to work this out myself and trying to navigate how I can have the best experience. But if I can maybe do a few things that will make it easier upon me, make me realize what a blessing it is to be actually a slave, which doesn't make any sense. And that's the point. At some stages in your life, you have to realize that sense cannot get you that far. When it comes to ubudiyya, you embrace that ubudiyya. You embrace the fact that I am a slave and I should be grateful for being a slave, because the alternative is not great. The alternative is not great. The alternative, because everybody is a slave, by the way. You're either a slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or you're a slave to everything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why when you hear the freedom, the real freedom is the slavery to Allah, people think, how is that possibly, that's a paradox. How can you be free when you're a slave. Well, actually, when you're a slave to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're freeing yourself from being a slave to all of that which was never ever worthy of being a lord to you in the first place. A fashion trend, a political move, the law of the land, all nothing. All the ideas and the theories of men, of created beings. They never had the right to be able to determine what you should do and not do, and for you to be a slave to them. So I want you to reflect that when you accept that I'm meant to do this for the sake of Allah, your mindset changes. And to apply it to Taraweeh, or to apply it to Ramadan and so on, people, you see, they're trying to do things that make their experience easier. I only want to go to the masjid that my friends are at, so that it can be a more social occasion. Or I want to, behind the imam, I want to pull out the mushaf or my phone. You start to see this is a growing trend amongst young folks, that this is an opportunity for me now to follow the imam in recitation. The imam is leading the salah and you're there behind, something which Abu Hanifa considered to invalidate your prayer. The vast majority of scholars, in fact all of the rest of scholars, hate this act. But people, when they start to try to work it out themselves, how can I make this ibadah easier? They go into the areas that you see. They start to cause problems for themselves in their deen. They fall into bid'ah, they fall into deviation. But they also start to cause problems to everybody else as well. Because when you come to this like it's a war, and you see that, the way that people come to Taraweeh is like battle stations. I've got to get here at this time, I've got to hold my place like this, you can see, the complaints are not decreasing outside in terms of the behavior of Muslims. They are actually increasing, which is crazy, which is absolutely crazy, especially amongst what you'd call middle-class educated kind of area Muslims, where you see folks arguing with the security folks, arguing with the volunteers. Why didn't you let me do this? Why don't I do that? You'll see anyone who wants to see this behavior, if you think I'm exaggerating, have a look at every night, one or two people who, when the brothers are saying, please turn this way, and they do that, and then they come and turn immediately right, because they refuse to spend another 2 minutes to go to the left and do a U around the roundabout. The level of selfishness is insane, especially when this is the month where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, that you develop taqwa, which is essentially discipline. Essentially, it's discipline. To be doing things that you don't necessarily want to do. So you do need to come early if you want to enjoy a front space, and don't expect to rock up 5 minutes before. And you need to be able to accept that you're going to be in a tighter place and it's going to be more compact. You want to enjoy lots of space? Come for Asr, come for Maghrib, you'll have lots of space. Lots of space. There are times and places to understand how this game works. When you're coming to Taraweeh, you're essentially signing a contract that I'm not necessarily meant to enjoy this, but Ya Allah, accept it from me. What did the hadith say? Man qama Ramadan imanan wa ihtisaba. It's a very interesting statement that. The Prophet ﷺ said that whoever stands the nights of Ramadan, imanan wa ihtisaban. Normally when you look at the other hadith about if you do this action, you get this reward. When you do this action, you get this reward. But in this one, the Prophet ﷺ added two kind of caveats. Imanan wa ihtisaban. Having faith and trust in Allah. Why would you need to do that? You would do the action for Allah anyway. Who else are we doing it for? But sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you need motivation. So the Prophet ﷺ said, imanan, knowing that you're doing it for Allah's sake. Wahtisaban. Ihtisab means that Allah, actually, listen to how this comes across. Allah, I'm holding you to account. I'm making hisab of you. You know when you do hisab kitab? Yep. Ihtisaban of Allah. Allah, you wanted me to come. It's not easy, it's long, it's tiring, not enjoying it, but I'll do it ihtisaban from you, Ya Allah. I expect from you, Ya Allah, to be rewarded because you asked me to do it and I did it like you did it. You told me to do it and I did it. That's then when you have your sins forgiven. So the mindset needs to change. We need to stop trying to work it out ourselves. The person who's holding a mushaf in their hands behind the imam is not doing it out of bad reason. He's convincing himself that this will make him more connected to what's being recited. That's not what's connecting you. What's connecting you is effort. What's connecting you is not you trying to follow in English what the imam is saying. What's going to connect you is to do what the scholars are telling you, what the Prophet ﷺ told you, which is to invest some time and learn what's being said. If you try to bring your aql to everything, what are you going to do in dua? Do we see what happens when the witr dua is being said? Everyone saying Ameen, Ameen, and not even listening. When the Prophet ﷺ made this dua, and the dua witr, this is a reminder to myself and the imams, is meant to be a short thing. We only have maybe 5 or 6 dua that's been narrated by the Prophet ﷺ when it comes to witr. Allahumma hadini fi man hadayt, you all know. Allahumma inni a'udhu bi ridak min sakhatik, as you know. Allahumma inna nasta'inuka wa nastaghfiruk, as you know. Allahumma aqatil al-kafara, as you know. This is short. The Sahaba used to say that the dua of witr of the Prophet ﷺ was the same length as it takes to recite إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انشَقَّتْ. إِذَا السَّمَاءُ انشَقَّتْ is like, if Shaykh Abdul Ghaffar is reciting, like about a minute or 2. Shaykh Abdul Rahman maybe half an hour. But it's short. It's short. But during that, you're meant to listen. You're meant to listen and not say Ameen, Ameen, Ameen to everything. Because when you say Allahumma hdina fi man hadayt, Ameen, Ameen. But when the Prophet ﷺ said, إِنَّكَ تَقْضِي وَلَا يُقْضَى عَلَيْكَ إِنَّهُ لَا يَذِلُّ مَنْ وَالَيْتَ وَلَا يَعِزُّ مَنْ عَادَيْتَ, you're meant to be silent. You're not meant to say Ameen. The weirdest thing ever. This is describing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is describing the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you're there saying Allahumma Ameen, Ameen, Ameen. It needs some preparation, questioning, asking. Remember that 2 people will never learn. The shy one and the arrogant one. We shouldn't be shy and we shouldn't be arrogant. You have so many scholars and students of knowledge in this masjid and in your community. Ask them, understand, put some effort in. That's what's needed. If you want to enjoy your ibadah, you have to put some effort in. It's just like anything. If you don't appreciate something, you're just going to think it's ridiculous. When you see someone talking in a foreign language and you insult them by saying tak, 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 you're saying tak, 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 they think exactly the same as you going tak, 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 tak in your English. If you spend a few minutes just understanding a few words, you have a greater appreciation for that person, their culture, their everything. So likewise for the salah, for the Taraweeh experience, you should have the same, especially when you're standing in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Take this reminder in the best of spirits, because what I'm saying is that this is never going to be easy. Your default position should be, Ya Allah, help me enjoy this process. Ya Allah, make it easier upon me. Make it something that I can feel the confidence to ask and learn, but it will take effort. It will need you to not chat with your friends. It will need you to respect the people that want to keep a door open. Then you move away. If you're too hot, then don't come with so many clothes. If you want to come, if you're too hot here, pray outside in the marquee. There's ways to be around. When you see a person, don't wait for him to tap your shoulder. Make the space for that person already. لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. You're meant to be someone that's acting before you're told to act, because you see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before the person makes you move for them. Every little bit that you can do to remove selfishness and to bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a requirement in Ramadan in order for it to be a permanent change. Think about that, folks. If you benefited from this, then my name's A.E. Abu Eesa. If you hated it, then it's A.G. Shaykh Abdul Ghaffar. Okay? All right.